We are good. Welcome back, DFS Deep Dive, Week 5. I'm Jordan. We got Brian back this week. Let's get it going.
Don't just stay in the shallow end. Join us on a DFS deep dive on For Frequency's Sake. And now here are your hosts, Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan.
Like I said, DFS Deep Dive, Week 5. I'm Jordan Kernan. We got Brian Craighead here. Brian, how's it going?
Jordan, I'm doing good. It's like you said, Week 5. Sorry I missed the first 4 weeks here, but had a lot going on, big move and health issues and whatnot. So I'm just excited to have a weekend of football.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I can't say anything. I missed weeks 1 through 3. I was in Oklahoma for some training, but it's good to be back. It's good to have somebody back with me. It gets lonely in here when I'm doing it by myself, but man, I'm just, like you said, I'm ready for a weekend of football. This will actually be the first weekend that I don't have a Sunday semi off. I'll be working most of the day on Sunday. I won't be able to catch any of the morning games, but I'll be able to catch the afternoon games.
Well, at least you can put up lineups, and I'll jump on the main show and give a little additional DFS advice, and we'll be good to go.
I agree, because it seems like we just talked about was injury news and bye weeks, and injuries this year have just been off the charts. It seems like every year there's at least one or two like big names that go down, but man, I just think that just the last year or two have just been injury after injury after injury after injury, and it seems like I'm playing like season long fantasy. I don't get too strung out about like making sure I've got like number one wide receivers, because by week 3 or 4, there are just a ton of people that you can go and pick up off the waiver wire who are all of a sudden getting, number one running back stats and number one wide receiver stats. It's crazy out
here. Well, yeah, exactly. And, some of the injuries have just continued to stick around, like Cooper Kupp and all CMC, and they just seem to linger. So,
yeah, it's wild stuff out there.
And we got some new ones today. I can run those down real quick, but Jonathan Taylor's out this week, and looks like it could be for a little while longer. So Trey Sermon will be his backup. I don't know. I'm not a huge Trey Sermon fan personally. 4th year in the league and never done anything, so that's never good. Khalil Shakir is out now. Joe Mixon is still out. Yep. The 2 Green Bay receivers, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, are both out. Also, Malik Neighbors, he is in the concussion protocol and sitting out the week. And then Devin Singletary is doubtful. And then those are your primary injuries. But then there's a few more questionable people. George Kittle, Devontae Adams is out, as is Zamir White. Anthony Richardson is questionable, along with Evan Ingram, David Njoku, and Brian Robinson Jr. So those are kind of your guys that are out, potentially out.
Yeah, there's it kind of blows my mind, but I tell you what, it makes building a lineup super easy this week, because there's all kinds of salary out there. It's just a matter of where do you want to pay up at. And I mean, if once we start kind of going into the breakdown of the positions and stuff like that, I can tell you one thing is, tight end has been one of those positions where it's just been a wasteland. There's been no points. I mean, outside of Brock Bowers getting a ton of targets, and same with Trey McBride. But other than that, man, just it's so hard to pinpoint a really, really good tight end.
It is. That mentioning McBride, he cleared the concussion protocol today, and he'll play Sunday. Be traveling to San Francisco, so keep that in mind when setting the lineups. And also, like we talked, I'm sorry, Jordan.
You're good. Do you have the list of games?
I do. I definitely have a list of games here. So it's very important, like Jordan says, this is the first of the bye weeks. And I didn't look exceedingly close to verify that it's through week 14 without missing a week. But we start bye weeks now and end in week 14. So the next several 9 weeks or whatever that is, 9 or 10 weeks, have to deal with bye weeks most weeks. Like I said, I didn't look to 100% guarantee. But there's 4 teams on bye this week. Those teams are the Titans, the Eagles, the Chargers, and the Lions. And then also, we always talked about last year, we are dealing with the DraftKings main slate. So those are your for me, I'm in Central Time Zone. So those are your 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. games. Last night kicked off the week with a very exciting 36-30 overtime win for the Falcons. And then Sunday morning, I know we're having a Sunday morning game. I think it's from London, the best I know. Vikings are playing the Jets. Vikings on that one are 2.5-point favorites. Then Sunday night, my Steelers play the Cowboys at home. And Monday night, you've got the Chiefs hosting the Saints. So, like I said, you've got 4 teams on bye, 8 other teams on the main slate. I'm sorry, on the primetime games. And so we're only dealing with let's see, that would be 12, I believe, 10 games during the main slate, the 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. games. So.
Yep, just 10 games. I think they'll have seven in the early slot and 4 in the evening.
Yeah, probably 7 and 3, or maybe 6 and 4.
It is 6 and 4.
And then I always like, for those that are kind of new to the program, I like to deal with what they call implied totals, and basically Vegas sets an over/under for each game. And one example of that would be the Ravens over/under is 50.5, and they are a what would that be? A 4-point favorite on the 3.5 to 4-point favorite on the Bengals. So the implied total for the Ravens is 27, and the Bengals is 23. And so the highest implied totals for the week is that one, the 49ers versus the Cardinals at home, the Packers traveling to the Rams, and the Bills are traveling to the Texans. Like I said, the Ravens is 27-23. 49ers expected is 28-21. The Packers is 26, Rams 23. The Bills 24, Texans 23. And 2 single teams. The Seahawks host the Giants and have an implied total of 25, whereas the Jags are hosting the Colts. The Colts have a decent expected total of 21.5, but the Jags are 24.5. So those are kind of your games that I like to target. You always want to, even when if you can in regular football, in-season football, you want to hope to have the best team with the best players, but DFS, you can actually choose those, and that's kind of nice. So.
Yeah, I was really, really excited about that Giants Seahawks game until all these injuries started coming out for the Giants. I have a big problem with that. I don't know that they're going to be able to keep it a game.
Yeah, like I said, Malik Neighbors is out, and that is their receiving options pretty much. And so yeah, and I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game for sure. And let me think about this. Devin Singletary is the running back, and he's doubtful. So, yeah, like you said, injuries have crept up on the Giants quickly.
All right. Well, before we get into the break, I'm going to go ahead and send us to our first commercial break, brought to you by Durham Remodeling.
Serving the Quad Cities area since 1973. And with over 50 years of excellence on their track record, you'll see why it's so easy to trust their experts when it comes to all of your home improvement projects. This family-owned business has you covered on all your needs. Protect your home or building from the elements today and get great roof repair services. Need new windows? No problem. Durham Remodeling can upgrade your windows and doors. Whether you want to upgrade the little details in your home or office, or want to tear a room down and start fresh, the expert contractors at Durham Remodeling have your back. Even the smallest changes can completely transform your space. Ready to start entertaining your friends for backyard barbecues? Durham Remodeling will help you plan, design, and build your deck and patio for the perfect outdoor space. Durham Remodeling's work is 100% guaranteed, so you can rest assured that you're getting the best service around. Call 309-786-6715 today for your free estimate for all your roofing, siding, flooring, windows, and painting needs. That's Durham Remodeling, 309-786-6715.
All right. Durham Remodeling, been a sponsor of the show, I'm pretty sure, since it started. So check them out if they have anything. If you have any remodeling, anything like that, get a hold of them. Before we jump into the players, so we were talking about games. We always talk about the games to target. I'm going to give you 2 games that I absolutely hate this week. Talk about implied totals, right? Dolphins at the Patriots. The spread is good. New England's minus 1 point from what I last saw, over under 36.5 points. The Dolphins without Tua have been atrocious, like just bad. The Patriots' run defense isn't that bad. So the places where you could target, like, your Devon Chan, stuff like that. I mean, if they're going to win this game, I think they have to get Tyreek Hill going for sure. Whether or not that happens, though, is a whole nother story. And then the Patriots, on the Patriots side, they're actually, it sounds like they're going to give Antonio Gibson the start over Ramondre Stevenson because Ramondre can't hold on to the ball. So with that being said, as somebody who has Ramondre in season-long fantasy, it sucks for me. But the game as a whole, like, I could see Antonio Gibson kind of going out here and showing out just because he's going to get the opportunity. But other than that, both these teams have just looked really bad. The other game, Raiders at the Broncos. Like you mentioned before, Ryan, the Raiders are going to be without Devontae Adams. I don't know what's been going on. Antonio Pierce, to close out the season last year, like, he had everybody rallied around him. He had the team in the palm of his hand. And it's like they've regressed since then. And they're against a stout Broncos defense, which I do like the Broncos defense this week at $2,900, but we'll talk about that. But the over-under is just 35.5 points. And, Bo Nix has looked good, but, they were kind of bad against a good Jets team last week. They ended up squeaking out the win. I could still see the Broncos offense doing a little bit. There are some people who are really all over Cortland Sutton this week, which, I mean, I've kind of stayed away from the Broncos in general, but we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, those are 2 games that I'm just other than maybe some defensive people, I'm not really looking forward to watching either of those.
No, I mean, I think the only 2 players from the Raiders you could possibly use is Alexander Madison, primarily because White's out, so he should get like all the carries, I would guess. And I would think Brock Bowers is always a play, but he's high priced. So,
yeah, I agree with that. All right, Brian, what do you got for quarterbacks?
Well, since our slate's kind of minimal, I've got 9 here listed, different price range. My first one is Josh Allen at the Texans. He's sitting at 7,700. Another factor that I like to use, I mentioned the implied totals, but I also like to use the defensive points against. So let's say that in this case, they're playing The Texans give up the 23rd most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. So I like to use matchups typically where they've got good potential matchups and fantasy points given up. So I've also got Lamar Jackson at the Bengals, 7,515 points against. C.J. Stroud opposing the Bills, that's 7,200, and he's 12th. The Bills are 12th in points. I got Daniels playing the Browns at home, got 6,800. Not the best matchup, but Jaden Daniels also gives that factor of running. So, it's fifth. They give up the fifth fewest points this year against the opposing quarterback, but I still like it because of that rushing upside. One of my favorite plays at a little lower price is Jordan Love. He's playing at the Rams. The Rams have been pretty bad. It's 6,500 for Jordan Love, and he's 25th against the pass, so not great. I like Joe Burrow against the Ravens. He's 6,400, 19th against the pass. I like Purdy against the Cardinals, 6,200, and they are 28th against the pass. And then I've got one of my favorite, low scheme. The Giants have to keep the game close, like we're talking. That could be an issue. But Geno's got a pretty good matchup against the Giants and a real good price tag at 5,900. And last but not least, like I mentioned in the intro, Anthony Richardson is questionable. If Joe Flacco plays and you want to save salary, the Jags are giving up the 30th most points against the pass. Flacco's sitting at 5,500. So that would give you an opportunity to pay down. I don't mind like comboing him with Pittman. Pittman had 113 yards receiving last week. So, I don't mind that. So those are kind of my quarterback plays. How about you, Jordan?
I'm with you on the Jordan Love play. I love the guy. He definitely knocked off the rust in the second half of last week's Minnesota game to come out in the second half and throw 4 touchdowns. And this is where we talk about the injuries. This is where the injuries come into play. It's easy to stack him. If you want Jordan Love, you got 2 options at the moment. You got 3 options, really. The first 2 are picking which wide receiver is going to have a day, Jaden Reed or Dontavian Wicks. And then you can cheap stack him with Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft had a ton of targets last week. I don't think he got in the end zone, but it was good to see him back on there and having a good game. So I put Joe Flacco in my article too. Me and my buddy have kind of talked about it since Richardson got hurt last week. We were like, hey, man, if he's out, Joe Flacco's the play. And I'm gonna get. This is probably a little crazy. Like if you're gonna put a contest for the Millionaire Maker, like, and you're trying to get a little bit different. Daniel Jones, 5,200. The weapons aren't going to be there. I mean, he doesn't have Singletary. He's going to have, a rookie running back out there or a second-year running back out there, and then he's not going to have his biggest weapon. But Wan'Dale Robinson has been just as solid, and the Seahawks have been playing pretty good defense, but not like shutdown defense. We saw the Lions kind of get after him. Not comparing the Giants and the Lions because the Lions are a way better team, but if Daniel Jones can get some room with his feet, and if they're going to make it a game, Daniel Jones at 5,200, I mean, all he's got to do is score 20 points, and he's just as good as a Josh Allen who scores 35. So I think you hit all the other players. I have Allen, Lamar, Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Joe Flacco, and then Daniel Jones. Those are my I tried to keep it a little bit light because I feel like I've been writing up a lot of quarterbacks. Now that we have some solid data, I've been trying to tone it down a little bit. But yeah, those 6 are my favorite, I think.
That makes sense. That's one thing for our listeners to think about is it usually takes, for me personally, the fifth week is about the time I start to feel more comfortable. The first 4 weeks is more about data collection and trends and all that. So now's the point in time where we should know most of what's going on, barring the injuries that are everywhere. But, that's another thing about the injuries. As an example, I'm not, as I mentioned, I'm not a huge Trey Sermon fan. But the one thing they did, he's not a discounted player like some of the others. They set these salaries. I think it's on Sunday night or Monday morning, very early in the week, and they already had Trey Sermon at a point in time. I wouldn't want him any higher than where he is for sure, and I wouldn't use him at his price tag because they didn't give you a discount. So
Yeah, I was kind of looking at that too when I saw it. Last year, week 15, from what I read, he got 17. He came on for an injured Jonathan Taylor, 17 carries for 88 yards. I'm not sure who he faced. I don't know any of that. I don't know how good the defense was, but I've got a matchup. But like you said, he's not any cheaper. Like if it's me, I want to almost pay for a guy like Chuba Hubbard, who's been getting all the work, all the catches, everything, and the dude's been just smashing. And he's only 6,100. So I think you're getting that. I think you're spending up $400. But like I said, salary this week's not something that you really have to pay attention to. Like you're going to be able to get. You could pay up for one stud running back, one stud wide receiver. Keep middling. We talked about Jordan Love at 6,500. You match him up with his other two, and I mean, you're talking that you're still under $20,000, or $20,000 in salary on DraftKings with those three. And then, like I said, you get a cheap defense. I mean, the lineup is there. It's just a matter of which one of these number two guys or which one of these guys is going to go off, and that's the hard part. All right. So we talked quarterbacks. I'll kick us off with running backs here. I'll start off at the top of the list with King Henry, $7,800 going up against the Bengals. I don't think we see another 109-yard performance, but they want to run the ball. They're a run-first team. Derrick Henry still got it. He leads the league in rushing. He is getting spelled. He doesn't get any of he gets some passing work, but all the passing work goes to Justice Hill. That man can catch and run. So if they're ahead, which the way this game is talked about and the spread being so close, I don't know that they're going to have a huge chance to just sit and run the ball like they did when they had the big lead over the Bills last week. But I do like Derrick Henry. Like I said, I think he's still got it. I really wish the Cowboys would have gone out and gotten him in the offseason because he's got so much in the tank. Next, Kyren Williams. The next two plays are sheer volume based. Kyren Williams is 80% of the snaps in the backfield for the Rams, and they're going to have to lean on this guy because no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson is even banged up now. So they're literally going with Tutu Atwell and Jordan Whittington, who are their two top receivers who aren't hurt. They're healthy. So I like Kyren Williams. I like him out of the backfield, getting a snap for $7,600. Next on the list is a guy who I talked about, who I knew wasn't going to be under $7,000 anymore. That's Jordan Mason. DraftKings finally priced the guy up. He was $6,700 last week, priced all the way at $7,400. Even with Deebo Samuel back last week, he's still getting 80%, closer to 90% of his carries. And they just want to run. They want to run the ball. San Francisco's going up against the Cardinals this week. The Cardinals can be ran on, and they're going to have to throw, keep it close. But we'll see what happens. If they get a good game script, Jordan Mason's going to smash. Next on the list, Kenneth Walker. So I've got Kenneth Walker in season-long fantasy. And this man single-handedly won me a game in one of our sleeper leagues. Zach Charbonnet was a great fill-in for this guy while he was out for weeks 2, 3, and 4. Or I'm sorry, 2 and 3. He came back. Yeah, last week was week 4. So had a good week 1, out week 2 and 3. And everybody was talking about how Kenneth Walker might not get a full workload because Charbonnet did such a good job. They put any of those speculations to rest. This man went off. Huge game. And I like him going up against the Giants again here. Like I said, temper expectations. Do I think he comes out and has a huge game again? Maybe. But, just don't get too chasey with it. After that, I really kind of drop off. Like we talked about Chuba Hubbard at $6,100. He's getting all the volume back there with Andy Dalton under center. They have to worry about the passing game, and they can't load the box in Carolina anymore. So I like Chuba Hubbard. One of the injuries of the questionable ones is Ryan Robinson Jr. He is a game-time decision as it stands right now. If he doesn't play, Austin Eckler is he's practiced this week. It seems like he's good to go. And then they have Jeremy Nichols as well. I like Austin Eckler. I think he gets most carries, and then he's still up the passing down back as well. So I don't know if they just bring in Nichols to spell him a little bit. They do a 50-50 split. But at $5,600, I really like Austin Eckler. Antonio Gibson at $5,100. I'm going to have to see if they're actually going to make this change to Ramondre Stevenson, or if they are, or if they're just saying that to make Ramondre think about it. But if the Patriots do go with Antonio Gibson at $5,100, super cheap. And then this one's kind of, I don't know where all the injuries. We know Joe Mixon's out for the Texans. We're still waiting on Dameon Pierce. If Pierce ends up being out and Cam Akers is the starter again, he hasn't done anything. And the person who looked good was Bear Ogumbawala. He looked really good last week. He was the better runner, better pass catcher, $4,800. If you really, really wanted to get cheap and take a swing for the fences on somebody, just make sure that Pierce is out, or Dameon Pierce is out as well. Because if Pierce is in, he's most likely going to get the bulk of the carries. But I kept my
I'm sorry to interrupt.
I kept my list light. So no, I kept my list light again, just like the quarterbacks. So I'm sure you've got some people that I didn't talk about.
Yeah. So one thing going back about Dari there, the Bills' run defense is 32nd, dead last against the run. So you got to like that play. I don't think Pierce is going to play based on reports I read on not to mention another website, but Roto World. I like to look at them every day, like several times a day. And based on what I'm reading, I don't think Pierce is going to play. You're right about Akers, but I think they would still split the backfield in some form or fashion. He hasn't done anything. Akers has not, but he did have 13 carries last week. So yeah. I think he can still get some work. But no, your list is very similar to mine. I mean, there is one guy that I'd like to call up at the top of the list that we all have our love affairs, and the matchup against the Texans isn't great. They're the 8th ranked defense against the run, but I still like James Cook at 7,000. I'm a huge James Cook homer for sure. Other than that, I mean, I've got James Conner mentioned. I don't necessarily love him. Like I said, my list is a little longer, and I think that's the right thing. That's the right thing to do, is trim it down. Especially, I know you're doing that article, so that's great to do that. You still can't get too far away from Chuba Hubbard this week, I don't think. You mentioned Hubbard previously, and the Bears are 23rd against the run, and he's sitting at 6,100. So we got a lot of our backup running backs that we can kind of go back to, like you mentioned. It's all about choosing options. But there's a lot of options this week. But like I said, I'm kind of surprised with Sermon. he's already sitting. My routing may not be great, but he's at least 5,100, I think. And I wouldn't pay that for him. And
yeah, he's 5,700. So he's like, if he was 5,100, I'd probably be all about it. But even at 5,700, like I said, you're talking $400 less than a guy who has come out and shown that he can get the work and do the job, and that's Chuba Hubbard. So yeah,
if I'm going to pay 5,700, I'd rather have DeAndre Swift myself versus the Panthers. I'm not paying 57 for Trey Sermon when I'm sitting DeAndre Swift. I'm thinking I could ask 100 people who the better overall running back is, and even though he struggled this year at times, he had a pretty good game last year, and I'm pretty sure 99 out of 100 will tell me that DeAndre Swift is a better running back for 5,700 than Trey Sermon. So
yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. All right. Well, before we jump into the wide receiver group, did you have anybody else for running backs?
No, that's good. There's a lot of low-end options this week, really. I mean, like you said, it's all about picking your substitute running back if you want to go that way and save money. When I expose my lineup here in a little bit, you'll see I didn't choose to go lower because there were other options available. But that's where I went anyway.
Yeah, nope, I'm in the same boat. All righty. So before we jump into wide receivers, let's get to our next commercial, paid for by Ryan Allison Tattoo over at Darkside Inc. in Davenport.
My name's Ryan Allison. I've spent over a decade immersed in the art of tattooing. Sharply honing my skills has materialized into a diverse and prestigious body of work. Each tattoo reflects my relentless pursuit of excellence, and every client I work with is a living embodiment of that unwavering commitment. I will gladly and wholeheartedly embrace your distinct vision.
All righty, and we're back. Ryan Allison Tattoo, like I said, Darkside Inc. down on 3rd Street in Davenport. Check him out. Get a hold of him. Ryan Allison Tattoo on Facebook. All right, Brian, what do you got for wide receivers?
Well, first of all, like I was saying, that at the running back position, there were a few pretty good options at lesser value. You have a few second wide receivers at that are available somewhat cheaper, but honestly speaking, I like the bottom tier, like below 5,900, below 5,500. I didn't find myself. I found one guy that I really loved at 5,000, and that's Wicks from Green Bay. We kind of talked about Jordan Love, and we talked about our options. Wicks, to me, I would go him. Not because I think he's any better, or maybe not even as good as his counterpart that's available, Jaden Reed. But Jaden Reed is sitting at 6,500, and he's sitting at 5,000. So for the $1,500 drop in value, I personally went with Wicks. I think I should go ahead and throw that out there. But so some of the combinations I like were, of course, Chase and Higgins. They're sitting at 8,000 to 6,000 respectively. And Baltimore can be beat against the pass. They're 23rd against the pass. I've started to fall in love with Nico Collins, but they've also changed his value price on us a little bit too. He's now sitting at 7,700, and I still love him, but man, his price is going through the roof. I don't mind the San Francisco combination. Brandon Ayuk's eventually got to do something. So I don't mind Debo and Ayuk. They're sitting at 6,800 and 6,300 apiece. Don't mind them. A little higher price, and so I set off of him. is Marvin Harrison Jr. in that same game. He's sitting at 7,500, and San Francisco's 13th in the pass. So I think it might be a little bit out of my price tag, but I don't mind him. Like I mentioned, the Green Bay guys, I like them. I don't mind the Browns receivers of Cooper and Judy, but needless to say, they're connected to Deshaun Watson. So the matchup's amazing. But actually they're 31st against the pass, and they're playing the Commanders. The Commanders give up tons of points to opposing receivers. The question is, can Deshaun Watson make those points? I don't know. Price tags are good. Judy's 6,200, and Judy's 5,200, and Cooper's 6,200. And then who else we got? Oh, I like the Carolina guys, Deontay and Leggett. They're playing at the Bears. Bears have a pretty solid pass defense, but the Panthers are a new team with Andy Dalton. I was lucky enough in my league of record of 24 years that a guy, after they named Bryce Young, was no longer starting. He dropped Deontay, and I picked him up. So that's kind of a silly move on his part. But Deontay's 6,100, Legett's 51. So if you want to go bottom feeder, that's pretty good play, I think, is Leggett. I don't mind Michael Pittman and Josh Downs against the Jags. They're at the Jags. The Jags give up the 28th most points to opposing wide receivers. Downs is 5,100. I don't like Downs this week as much as Leggett, but that's just me. And Pittman's sitting at 6,000. And then one of my favorite plays is Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk. I don't mind those guys at all. They're playing at home versus the Colts. Thomas is 5,900 and Kirk is 5,700, and finally had a pretty good game. I think it was last week, and they're 26th. The Colts are 26th against the pass. So you got some pretty good matchups. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about, like, I was staying away from a lot of the top guys. Like you mentioned, Jamar Chase, which I'm totally fine with. I think he could definitely have a game. I think it worries me a little bit about how good they kept Josh Allen under wraps, but Josh Allen doesn't have a receiver with the caliber of Jamar Chase out there. So I think that was a big reason why they were able to keep him under wraps. So I do like Jamar Chase. We talked about Nico Collins, Tyreek Hill. I think if the Dolphins win this game, I think they get Tyreek Hill going. He hasn't had a good game since week one. Granted, he's been without a solid quarterback. But they were trying to get him involved in end rounds. They put him in the backfield a little bit last week. At 7,600, I mean, for Tyreek Hill, that's extremely cheap. So if they get him the ball, he could be somebody who breaks the slate. Did you mention the Seahawks wide receiver group?
I didn't. I had them written down, but I tried to pare it down a little bit. My concern with the game is whether the Giants can keep it interesting long enough to need him. I mean, it may very well be a Kenneth Walker game where they just give him and Charbonnet the ball. And I like Metcalf and Smith, and both Metcalf and Smith and Jigba. The Giants are 14th against the pass, and the price tags for those two guys, 7,000 for Metcalf, 5,800 for Smith and Jigba. They're good price tags. They're both top 30 receivers. Metcalf's top 10. And it's all a matter of whether the Giants can keep it close, I think.
I agree with that. That's why I was kind of just scrolling down my list, and I was like, I can't remember if he did or not. But yeah, and I think if Malik Neighbors was playing, I would like them a little bit more just because I think the upside would have been there for the Giants to at least keep it within a score. But now it's having a little worried. We talked about Nico Collins. What do you think about a Stephon Diggs revenge narrative game?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I've got him written down here. I'm as much as I'm a fan of Nico, I'm not as much of a fan of Diggs. He's never done anything to me personally, but for whatever reason, I've never been a huge fan of him. But I could see that narrative. It's going to be a high-scoring game.
Right. Then after that, we talked about Jaden Reed. He was the next guy. I really like the price on Amari Cooper. We talked about, or you mentioned Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. You mentioned Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. I'm in love with Brian Thomas or Christian Kirk this week. I like both of them. So your Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk call just makes me feel like I'm on the right track. I've got Christian Kirk in season-long fantasy, and the last 2 weeks he's been serviceable. Has he been the Christian Kirk of last year, where he's putting up solid games all the time? No, but he's definitely been a good bye week replacement. Then you kind of get into the Wan'Dale Robinson range at 5,600. I like him just because he's going to be operating as that number one wide receiver for the Giants. And if it's close for a little bit and they have to sling the ball, he should be the person to take those extra balls, extra targets. Then we talked about Judy, we talked about Josh Downs. You love Dontavian Wicks. I like Dontavian Wicks. The two guys under 5K that I have, with the news that Khalil Shakir is out, we've got the rookie Keon Coleman, who might not be. He still looks like he.
Jordan, are we still there?
For frequency's sake, has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Card Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Head on over to the Hardwood with Doug Green and Watching the W each week for all the news from the WNBA. Want more insight from Pit Row? Check out the Green, White, and Checkered podcast where they give their insight on everything happening on and off the track. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Dan Hancock and Gotham Gambling will help you cover the spread with the Golden Ticket Show. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellas come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip into the football lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
I'm not sure what's going on.
My name's Ryan Allison. I've spent over a decade immersed in the art of tattooing. Sharply honing my skills has materialized into a diverse and prestigious body of work. Each tattoo reflects my relentless pursuit of excellence, and every client I work with is a living embodiment of that unwavering commitment. I will gladly and wholeheartedly embrace your distinct vision.
Sorry, everybody. Jordan seems to be having some technical issues. We are we left off at the tight ends and defenses that we were kind of picking this week. So I've got approximately 9 of each going on. Starting at the top end, I've got Trey McBride. Like I said, he cleared concussion protocol today, and he's playing at the 49ers, and his price tag is $5,900. Next, I like George Kittle in that same game, playing versus the Cards. He's sitting at 5,600. Next, I've got Brock Bowers playing at the Broncos, 5,500. And then after that, we're looking at Dalton Kincaid playing at the Texans. Like I said, I think this is going to be one of the higher scoring games. They're actually 30th against the pass are the Texans. And Kincaid is at 5,300. Then we've got Komet versus the Panthers. He's really brought up his game the last couple of weeks. He's sitting at 4,300. Panthers are 23rd against, they're 26th against the pass. And then Jordan, I've kind of talked about this. There's actually 3 decent guys at the lower price, but the one we seem to prefer is Tucker Kraft. Once again, the Packers are playing at the Rams. He's at 3,500. Next, I don't mind Mike Gesicki playing versus the Ravens. He's at 3,400, and I kind of expect that to be a higher scoring game. And last but not least, 2 weeks ago, I hadn't even heard this guy's name, but Strange for the Jaguars is playing versus the Colts, and he's sitting at 3,200. So that's kind of a breakdown of my tight ends.
Oh no. At least you guys can hear me now, because I was having the worst time. Brian got booted, and then my microphone stopped working. So we kept trying to get him back in. And the whole time, I'm not realizing that my microphone stopped. God, what a night. So he talked about Trey McBride, talked about Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid. Let's see if we can't get him back in here. And if not, I'll add him to the stage when he comes back. So he just talked about those guys. I'm definitely on board with all of them. I don't mind George Kittle if he plays. Evan Ingram. So the only time I'm going to play Brenton Strange is if Evan Ingram is out. If Evan Ingram is back, Strange really kind of doesn't do it for me anymore, just for the fact that Ingram's going to take all those targets that he was getting. And then he likes Mike Gesicki. I'm on the other side. I think that the other tight end for the Bengals, Eric All Jr., at $2,700, he's kind of been taking over the number 1 wide receiver role. He's outsnapped Gesicki the last couple weeks. At $2,700, I mean, it makes a lot work. So if you want to try to get both of those, if you don't think you're going to do it and you want to, you can go with like a Jordan Love and then Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and then pay all the way down for Eric All Jr. And honestly, that's kind of been my strategy so far this year, just because the tight end position has been just a wasteland. There's nothing out there that is making me say, hey, I need to pay up at tight end this week in order to get the guy that I want. So if we threw in Wicks into a lineup, Jaden Reed, and you had Jordan Love as your quarterback, there's still a ton of money left on the table that allows you to kind of put in your flex position. Then after that, Brian's not back yet, so I'm going to run into defenses here. My top defense that I think I would take on the slate is the Seahawks defense. The Giants are banged up. They don't have Malik Neighbors. I find it very hard for them to even make the game. $3,500, pretty cheap for a defense, especially going up against a a team that is going to have that many injuries, and their number one wide receiver and then their starting running back's going to be out. After that, I love the Broncos. They just kind of put Aaron Rodgers and that whole offense in their place, and now they get a Raiders team that can't figure it out. They're going to be without Devontae Adams, so their number one wide receivers on the bench. Another team that is the same price. If you wanted to be different, the Patriots going up against the Dolphins. The Dolphins just don't have a quarterback, and that means the Patriots can mold the box, and they're going to make the quarterback. They're going to make whoever they're going to start at quarterback beat them. After that, the Colts against the Jags. This one's a little bit. I like the Colts in season long. They've got a lot of good matchups, but the Jags they're due for a win, and I think this is probably the week. So if you get ballsy and you think the Colts are going to keep the Jags to a winless streak, be my best. I did put them in there just because the Jags just haven't been good this year, but we'll see what happens. And then the Panthers at $2,200. Caleb Williams is starting to figure it out. He's getting better and better as the weeks go on, but he still turns the ball over. So that's the cheapest I'm going to go. Give me 1 second here. It's been a night for technical difficulties. Trying to get Brian back in here just to kind of go over the tail end of this. I don't know what's going on. He's moving. My basement doesn't seem to like Wi-Fi or my microphone or my computer or my charger. It's just been one of those nights. While I still have you here, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give you my DraftKings lineup here, because this is normally what we kind of like to talk about. So right here, I've got my DraftKings lineup. This is what I have set up so far. I've got Jordan Love at the quarterback position, going with King Henry at the running position, then Chuba Hubbard, somebody who we talked about, getting all the touches for Carolina. I'm stacking Jordan Love with two wide receivers as Jordan Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Jordan Whittington from the Los Angeles Rams. If Demarcus Robinson can't go and he ends up being the number one, and then last but not least, Eric Hall Jr. at the tight end position, and then the Broncos defense. So then if you go to your flex spot, leaves you, like I said, a ton of salary, $7,900 in the flex position. And this is where you could get a little bit different. You could get rid of Dontavian Wicks if you wanted to. You could put in Tucker Kraft. You take him out, you put in Kraft at $3,500, still $6,000 per. You could get down here in the somebody else we talked about, the Brian Thomas Jr. range, and that still leaves you $6,200. We talked about like Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, if you wanted to get a piece of that game, Michael Pittman Jr. I mean, this just right here gives you number one wide receiver, possibly the number one wide receiver. I mean, it just works. And then, if you talk about, say, Anthony Richardson's out, you jump down here to the $5,500 range, and you go ahead and throw in Joe Flacco there, and then it just lets you do even more. I mean, $5,800 for another. You go with Smith and Jigba here. I don't mind that. It's just a matter of whether or not the Giants can keep this a game. I mean, the options are endless. It all goes to show it just goes to show that there's a lot of stuff down here if you can it's just how you want to piece it together, honestly. I mean, you could pay up the quarterback. You could go with like a Josh Allen stack and just be a little bit cheaper. You can go a little bit cheaper in some spots and pay up in others, and it's just a matter of where the pay up is. I mean, are you going to be able to pay up? It's DFS is always about picking the right spot to pay up at, and that this week is are you going to be able to pay up? Are you going to pick the spots to pay up at in the right spots? You know, is it back? Is it running back? Is it wide receiver? God forbid it be tight end this week. But I think that's all we've got. I do have a comment here. We've got Ian from Australia. Commanders with a good picture, my big improvers. I'm a Cowboys fan. Always have been, always will be. Right here. Got the Cowboys jersey on. I am a little worried that the Commanders win the NFC East. So they're having a fantastic year. It kind of reminds me of 2012 when we got RG3 coming in. I mean, Jaden Daniels. I mean, RG3 was he was a good quarterback at the time, and he gets hurt, and then he kind of gets scared away. I hope Jaden Daniels doesn't get hurt. The guy's he's shown great poise in the pocket. He's learning every step of the way, and it's going to make it a good division for a while, I hope. So, yeah. Ian from Australia, Commanders, yes, I agree with you 100%. They are huge improvers. The matchup this week just scares me a little bit. The Browns do have a good defense. It doesn't always show sometimes, but it kind of scares me away a little bit. So with that being said, we're going to close it out there. Sorry about all the technical difficulties. We're right at an hour here. Granted, 5 to 10 minutes of that was me not being able to talk, Brian cutting in and out, and then having to cut in and out, and just, one of these weeks we'll get it right, and it won't be so crazy. So thanks for tuning in. Join us next Friday for the DFS Deep Dive. And